Houston Station on the big loop. APAS hatch is open and no condensation.
Yeah, we copy.
And you just heard confirmation from NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli, who has been working through those hatch opening procedures. She has confirmed that the APAS hatch is open. And in just a few minutes, we should see the hatch of Dragon open and welcome the Crew-8 crew members aboard the International Space Station. Crew-8 began their journey to the International Space Station on Sunday, March 3rd, following a launch from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida at Launch Complex 39A. They launched atop a Falcon 9 rocket at 9:53 p.m. Central, 10:53 p.m. Eastern, and have been on an approximately 28-hour journey to the International Space Station, where they docked just over an hour ago at 1:28 a.m. Central, 2:28 a.m. Eastern. They've been working through these hatch opening procedures to equalize the vestibule, do some leak checks, and ensure everything is good to go before the hatches on Dragon are open to officially welcome Crew-8 aboard. Crew-8 is comprised of NASA astronauts Matthew Dominic, Michael Barrett, and Jeanette Epps, as well as Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin. It's a first space flight for Dominic, Epps, and Gurbankin, and a third flight for Barrett. Once on board, they will complete a brief welcome ceremony with the rest of the Expedition 70 crew, and then they will have a space station safety briefing before they jump right into handover activities with the Crew 7 crew members for the next few days before Crew 7 makes its way back home to Earth to complete their approximately 6-month journey aboard the International Space Station.
Houston, SpaceX from station on the big loop. Station is ready for Dragon hatch equalization.
Houston, SpaceX Dragon is ready for hatch equalization.
Dragon, SpaceX, we copy.
Station Dragon, Houston on a big loop. Standby for equalization. It's expected to take about 2 minutes. And then be advised that after the hatch is open, the target base plate on the APAS hatch won't be covered, so exercise caution when translating past it.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. You are go for hatch opening per decal.
SpaceX Dragon on the big loop.
And we just heard confirmation that they are go for hatch opening. We should see Crew-8 welcomed aboard in just a minute or two. Following a docking earlier this morning at 1:28 a.m. Central, 2:28 a.m. Eastern Time, we have worked through the hatch opening procedures, including the vestibule pressurization. And now we are standing by for Crew-8 to come aboard.
Dragon on the big loop. Hatch is open.
Copy, hatch open.
And we just heard confirmation that the Dragon hatch is open, so we should see those Crew-8 crew members float aboard shortly. Currently on your screen, you can see JAXA, or Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, astronaut Satoshi Furukawa on the far left. In the center is ESA, or European Space Agency astronaut Andreas Mogensen, and also there was NASA astronaut Laurel O'Hara. They were working to set up for the welcoming ceremony that will take place shortly after Crew-8 floats aboard. And now you are seeing a live view inside the Dragon Endeavour spacecraft. You can see the SpaceX suits that the Crew-8 crew members were wearing for the docking operations, as well as for launch on Sunday, March 3rd. Crew-8 is currently standing by, and they will be ingressing into the International Space Station just a short time from now. And there we can see Crew-8 being joyfully welcomed aboard the International Space Station. First aboard was NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic, followed behind him NASA astronaut Michael Barrett and NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps. And pulling up the end, we have Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin. The Crew-8 astronauts now officially a part of Expedition 70, and the other Expedition 70 crew members giving them hugs and handshakes as they make their way onto the International Space Station, which will be their home for the next 6 months as they conduct important science and research. With Crew-8 officially on board, we're now just standing by for some welcoming remarks from the crew. And we are currently in a brief but expected handover period. We will get signal back shortly and get those views back of the International Space Station crew.
Station Houston, Space to Ground 2. Picture looks good. There's a cable that's taking up from our perspective, the upper right side, maybe about in the top, 20% of the screen. See if we can get that moved a little bit.
We are in another brief but expected handover period between satellites, and we should get views back of the International Space Station in just a minute. The Tracking and Data Relay Satellite System is NASA's network of specialized communication satellites, and these satellites relay signals between spacecraft, including the International Space Station and ground control stations on Earth. Once we get communication back with the International Space Station, that welcoming ceremony with Crew-8 and the rest of the Expedition 70 crew will begin.
Station, this is Houston on Space to Ground 2. Are you ready for the event? All right, let's roll. All right, stand by, stand by. Hey, Andy, sorry about that. Can you give us a little count on the microphone? We weren't getting the audio down here. Check. Okay, just another quick count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right, 11, 12, 13, we're ready to roll.
Excellent. A big warm welcome to Crew-8 from all of us up here. Wouldn't you know it, after having made fun of Crew-8 for launching late. They arrive early to the space station and have us scrambling this morning. But it's absolutely fantastic to see their smiling faces. Welcome to space, Matt, Jeanette, and Alex, and welcome back to space to Mike. This is also for Crew 7 a slightly bittersweet moment, because with their arrival, it also starts the countdown to our own departure and return to Earth in about a week's time. But it's great to see Crew-8. Welcome. You guys are going to have a fantastic mission. I'm sure of it. And we look forward to spending the next week in space with you. And for Laurel, Oleg, and Nikolai, there you are. A few more weeks. But welcome to you, and I'll pass the mic to you, Matt.
Thank you so much. We are, of course, super excited to be here, and after we saw you call us out yesterday, we phoned a few friends to expedite things to kind of throw you off guard on purpose. Or so we hope, or wished. Anyway, we're so excited to be here. Big thank you to everyone who helped put this together, such a giant team around the world. And we're excited to be on board and ready to take over the watch. Over to you, Mike.
Well, first thing is just great to be back. There's such a sense of familiarity and homeness to the station. And can't wait to get back to work, but just a big shout out to all the folks who got us up here to NASA, our friends at SpaceX for building a great little spaceship, and a little taste of the flexibility this morning that we'll be expecting over the next 6 months. I know that our flight's going to go by in a blink of an eye, and really anxious to start. Thanks for the very warm welcome from Crew 7.
I second everything that Matt and Mike has said, and I just want to thank my family as well for being patient with me, and I made it here.
Всем привет с орбиты. Ну что, мы добрались. Полет был достаточно легким, поэтому надеюсь, что и продолжение будет подобным. Всем спасибо и всем передаю большой привет. Thanks a lot, all teams.
Well, once again, welcome to the International Space Station. This is an incredible place. You will have a great time up here, just like we did. We are doing so much exciting science at the moment, and we look forward to introducing you to all of it. So once again, welcome, Crew-8.
All right, thanks, Station, for all of that. I can tell you on behalf of us that are left here on the planet, we are incredibly proud to be part of this, and we're all smiling down here. All right, Station, we are now resuming operational communications.
And there you have it. Crew-8 is officially on board the International Space Station and welcomed by the Expedition 70 crew, bringing the current space station population to 11 for the next few days. Crew-8 began their journey to the orbiting laboratory following a liftoff at 9:53 p.m. Central, 10:53 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, March 3rd from Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida atop a Falcon 9 rocket. Following orbital insertion, the Dragon vehicle carrying Crew-8 completed a series of automatic maneuvers to guide the spacecraft to the forward-facing port of the station's Harmony module. Dragon Endeavour and its 4-person crew of NASA astronauts Matthew Dominic, Michael Barrett, and Jeanette Epps, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Gurbankin docked to the International Space Station at 1:28 a.m. Central, 2:28 a.m. Eastern on Tuesday, March 5th, as the space station and Dragon were traveling over the North Atlantic, just east of Newfoundland. Once the vestibule was pressurized and a series of leak checks were performed, the hatches were opened and Crew-8 was officially welcomed aboard the International Space Station, where they will spend the next 6 months docked to the orbiting laboratory, conducting new scientific research and experiments. Thank you for joining us for our Crew-8 coverage this morning. Go NASA, go SpaceX, and go Crew-8. This is Mission Control Houston.
Star sailors, thinkers, and adventurers.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Let's go. we have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the material to pursue the exploration of the universe.
Did you know that if you were born after 2000, during your entire life there has been someone living in space? That's thanks to the International Space Station, which celebrated its 20th anniversary of continuous human habitation in 2020. You've probably heard a lot about the incredible science that happens on board the station, but the outside is actually prime real estate for all kinds of experiments and technology development too.
The International Space Station is a great platform to demonstrate servicing technology because it provides power, data, there's robotics in space.
With Tech on Deck, we'll be talking about some key experiments that have taken place outside in the harsh environment of space, which will help us advance human exploration.
Nexus is NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Project Division at the Goddard Space Flight Center. The goal of the division is to usher in a new era of more sustainable, affordable, and resilient spaceflight, both near the Earth, around the Moon, and deep into the solar system. Many members of the Nexus team started off with the Hubble telescope servicing missions. We've taken that technology, applied that to robotic servicing.
From robotic refueling missions that will help spacecraft live longer and journey farther to autonomous navigation systems, NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Division has taken advantage of the wonderful opportunity station offers to test new technologies. As we look to exploring our solar system and beyond, and establishing a sustained human presence in space beyond low Earth orbit, many of these technologies will play a key role.
We use the robots in Space Station to demonstrate the technologies needed to enable satellite servicing in the future. We've also used the robots on Space Station to do some of the more repetitive tasks or the dangerous tasks that astronauts shouldn't be doing, like going outside the Space Station to try to look for ammonia leaks. Robots are very good at moving fine, delicate positions, moving back and forth, doing those sorts of tasks that would be challenging for humans to do.
In order to live in space, astronauts will first need to reach their far-out destinations like Mars. This will require refueling and replenishment of oxygen supplies, things the robotic refueling missions worked to demonstrate on station. They will also need to be able to construct, maintain, and repair their habitats, as well as adapt to unforeseen circumstances.
Because we're in space in low Earth orbit, we have lighting conditions that are representative of objects in space. And so it allows us to launch tools and modules into orbit, put them on the space station, and then use those robotic technologies and all the infrastructure that comes with the space station to mature those technologies in a way that's much, much less expensive than if we try to launch our own satellite and demonstrate those for the first time, not using the space station.
For these endeavors, Nexus's work with astronaut tools, satellite servicing, and on-orbit assembly and manufacturing will do the trick.
We develop the technologies that are needed to advance exploration in ways you can service satellites in the future, build satellites and build structures on orbit, refuel satellites on the way to other planets, repair those satellites much like we do on that side of space station. Both humans and robots are used to maintain habitats in space. We're developing technologies that can be used by NASA and others to make those a reality.
The International Space Station is the perfect testing ground for technologies that will be used to propel humans farther than we've ever gone before. The station is helping us build the necessary foundation to make it possible. Outside of the International Space Station, space can be a lonely place. Most satellites are designed to live their lives alone, and we've yet to find life outside of Earth. This means that when we launch a spacecraft or satellite, for the most part it's on its own, and has a limited lifespan based on when critical items like fuel run out or something breaks. You wouldn't throw away your car if it ran out of gas, and thanks to the advent of modern-day robotics, software, and computing power, we will soon be able to apply that logic to satellites. We are on the cusp of breaking the one-and-done paradigm that exists for most satellites. An important step in that direction is NASA's Robotic Refueling Mission, or RRM, demonstration on the International Space Station. Because refueling a satellite that was not designed to be refueled has never been done before, practice is key. With that in mind, the first 2 phases of RRM took place on station from 2011 to 2017 and tested the tools, technologies, and techniques to refuel and repair satellites in orbit.
RM and RM Phase 2 were designed to demonstrate end-to-end refueling of a spacecraft, as well as the first steps of cryogenic refueling or replenishment. We wanted to use the robot on the International Space Station to be able to demonstrate the technologies and techniques to do this refueling, so we built innovative tools to bridge the gap between the robot and the payload interfaces.
Consisting of a module or box affixed to the outside of station and robotic tools, the demonstrations use station's Dexter robot to operate tools and test servicing tasks such as cutting and peeling back protective thermal blankets, unscrewing caps, turning valves, transferring fluid, inspection, and intermediary steps leading up to refueling.
Once we were all done, we were able to transfer fuel end-to-end through a spacecraft fill and drain valve that wasn't designed to be robotically refueled.
The RRM demonstration helped test and prove technologies that will make refueling satellites not designed to be refueled possible, something that will be further demonstrated by NASA's On-Orbit Servicing, Assembly, and Manufacturing 1 mission. But it also helped to lay the groundwork for designing future satellites in a way to make them more easily serviceable.
These missions were important because we needed to demonstrate in orbit that this technology was ready. There were a lot of people that felt that at the time of RRM that the technology was so far in the future that they didn't feel what we were talking about was possible. So we needed to demonstrate in orbit this technology so that we could start changing the paradigm and incorporate these technologies into the future spacecraft designs and missions.
RRM Phase 1 and 2 were all about preparing an interface for refueling, which in many ways is half the battle. To robotically refuel a satellite, you need to perform a series of highly dexterous tasks to even access the valve. The next step is to actually perform refueling tasks, which is what the next phase, RRM-3, has been demonstrating on station over a series of operations since 2018. RRM is a critical piece of the sustainable spaceflight puzzle that helps us with the ability to robotically refuel, repair, and maintain satellites in both near and distant orbits, well beyond the reach of where humans can go today. For generations, Mars has beckoned. Now, the red planet is within our reach. But how do we get there? The key is in the details, and in the technology. First and foremost, you need fuel. This is not only true for getting to Mars, but for any form of deep space exploration. Being able to replenish fuel on a long-duration journey means massive amounts aren't needed up front, freeing up space for other important things. Enter Robotic Refueling Mission 3, or RRM-3 for short. This demonstration launched to the International Space Station in December of 2018 and has helped us develop tools and techniques needed to replenish cryogenic fluid in space. Transferring cryogenic fluids has never been done before in space. These super cold fluids can be used as propellants, coolants, or for life support systems. Being able to replenish these fluids that run out, otherwise known as consumables, is an important part of the sustainable exploration roadmap. Not just for Mars, but for NASA's Artemis program, which will land the first woman and the next man on the moon. Since refueling cryogenic fluids in space has never been done before, RM-3 tested the technologies and techniques needed to make that possible. First, we sent the RM-3 payload and its 3 main tools to Space Station, where astronauts assembled the parts.
When I was living aboard the International Space Station in the spring of 2019, I was fortunate enough to take part in the very small part in the Robotic Refueling Mission 3. And my job was to unload the components of the actual RRM-3 from one of our visiting vehicles, and we take it into our Japanese experimental module, the GEM, where we have an airlock. And right inside of the airlock, we unpacked all of the boxes, much like you would a piece of furniture that you had to assemble yourself at home. So unpacked all of the pieces, we did a checkout. We worked with the ground, we got everything assembled, and then we placed it into the Japanese airlock. And from there, we were able to put it outside of the International Space Station. So my involvement in RRM-3 was the physical final assembly of the actual components.
RRM-3 was delivered to the space station by a SpaceX Dragon on the company's 16th Commercial Resupply Services mission and installed on the outside of station by the Canadian robot Dexter. Dexter then picked up the tools from the JEM airlock and installed them onto the RRM-3 payload. The ground operations team was now ready to begin operating the 3 tools to test how they would work in space. For the first set of operations, conducted in August 2019, Dexter used one of the RRM-3 tools to prepare the RRM-3 module's interface for transferring cryogenic fuel. The second set of operations was then conducted in October 2020. For these, Dexter used one of the remaining 2 tools to insert an 11-foot-long hose in an open port and the other snake-like camera inspection tools simultaneously to verify the hose's position in the inside of RRM-3's tubing. This marked the first time that Dexter had tools in both arms working the same tasks simultaneously. The RRM-3 demonstration added experience and information to NASA's knowledge base on the storage and transferring cryogenic fluids in space. It is currently still on station, where it will conduct one final set of operations in mid-2022. For getting to the Moon, Mars, and beyond, cryogenic fluids will be used as propellants and to maintain life support systems for astronauts. The Mars atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide, which could be converted to liquid oxygen, a type of cryogenic fluid that could be used both as propellant and for breathing. Astronauts may be able to fuel rockets or replenish their oxygen supplies using compounds found in the Martian atmosphere. A tool on the Mars Perseverance rover called Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, or MOXIE, is set to demonstrate the first ever conversion of Martian carbon dioxide to oxygen, which is another important piece of the puzzle. In order to make a sustained human presence in space a reality, humans and robots will have to work together using technologies like those developed by RRM-3 and MOXIE.
A lot of people ask about, whose job is exploring outer space? Is it robots or is it humans? And I believe that it requires teamwork between robots and humans, and that our exploration is not complete or even possible without both. So robots can go farther, they're less expensive, and they can go for longer periods of time. They don't require as much maintenance. You don't have to feed and care for a robot, much like you do if you send me back to space. So like the Mars rovers, the Galileo that explored Jupiter and its moons, the Hubble and the soon-to-be James Webb Space Telescope, they are doing missions in locations that humans, to this point, don't have the capability to go. There's also something very important about humans wanting to know what it's like to be there. It's not enough for humans to take a picture of Mount Everest or Antarctica and say, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. The human condition is we are born to explore. We're born to say, what if? What's just beyond what we know? And what is it like to be there? And so the human side of space exploration, first of all, it's orders of magnitude closer to Earth. We have not been able to send humans nearly as far as we've been able to send robotic probes. But they're 2 very different missions, and they serve a different type of curiosity.
Mars and deep space are calling human explorers, and RRM-3 is a step toward helping NASA answer that call. Though it sounds complex, the idea is simple. Having the ability to refuel will allow NASA to embark on longer journeys to explore the depths of our solar system. Did you know there's a 3-eyed raven currently perched on the International Space Station? Not an actual bird, but rather a technology payload that is helping NASA develop a relative navigation system, or autopilot, for spacecraft. Launched to station in 2017 aboard a SpaceX Dragon on the company's 10th Commercial Resupply Services mission for NASA, and installed on the outside of ISS by station's Dexter robot, Raven is equipped with 3 distinct camera vision systems: visible, infrared, and LiDAR. Combined with NASA-developed software algorithms, this rotating module of technology keeps a weather eye on arriving spacecraft. Raven's head, containing its 3 eyes, or cameras, is always on the swivel, which is made possible by its integral gimbal.
Raven is an on-orbit test bed that was built to mature technologies related to relative navigation sensors and algorithms. Raven was launched to the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX Dragon capsule in February 2017. And it's been operational on the space station since that time. So using 3 different sensors on Raven that are on a movable gimbal platform, Raven can track the incoming visiting vehicle to station all the way from very, very far away, all the way up to where they dock with the space station. So basically, at any given time, Raven can tell you where the incoming visiting vehicle is in space relative to the space station and what attitude or pointing direction it is.
Raven sends the data it collects from tracking and observing incoming spacecraft to its processor or brain, called SpaceCube. This information then tells Raven how it needs to move to continue to track the spacecraft and gauge relative distance and positioning. NASA engineers have taken what they've learned from multiple Raven observations over the years to adjust and fine-tune the relative navigation system as needed, so it's ready for the upcoming on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing 1 mission, which will robotically refuel a satellite, among other things.
Raven is a sensor system that can image an object, process those images on board in real time with advanced algorithms, and calculate the pose of the object relative to itself.
These factors come together to create something like spacecraft autopilot. Much like a self-driving car can maintain cruise control based on the speed of the vehicle it follows, 2 free-flying spacecraft will be able to dock with one another using this technology. Though this operation is similar to the autonomous docking of visiting spacecraft to station, Raven's unique application is necessary for docking 2 satellites with the challenges of each moving and rotating in every direction during the rendezvous and docking phase.
Using that information to then guide the first spacecraft to autonomously rendezvous with and dock with the second spacecraft. So that means finding it in space, aligning with it appropriately, and then bringing the 2 vehicles together without smashing them into and destroying each of them, all without human intervention.
This capability is the kind of thing you need for docking with spacecraft that were not originally designed to be docked with and serviced, which happens to be a vast majority of them. That's why Raven's time on station is critical for the future of on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, or OSAM. The OSAM-1 mission will use Raven's relative navigation capability to autonomously, meaning no humans involved, rendezvous and dock with the satellite, and then telerobotically refuel it. This will be the first time in history a spacecraft not originally designed to be serviced will be refueled as a means to extend its operational life. Raven is also important for future exploration missions.
Raven's technologies can be applied to future NASA missions because if humans want to make a footprint in the solar system beyond low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is located, we're going to have to rely on some form of autonomous docking technologies in the future. Whether it be an unmanned cargo vehicle meeting up in orbit around the moon, refueling tankers located in geosynchronous Earth orbit, or a return vehicle arriving on Mars in advance of a crewed landing, all of these feats will require the technology we're developing with Raven.
Using its 3 eyes, Raven is looking to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
Relying on highly robust autonomous systems becomes more crucial the further you move away from Earth as the communications time increases drastically. Once you move past low Earth orbit, it becomes very impossible for humans on Earth to do these highly complex maneuvers in real time. It's more efficient to allow computers to perform these sequences autonomously without human intervention.
Although Raven has successfully concluded its main mission objectives, it remains on station. Meanwhile, its team on the ground is using what they've learned to develop more never-before-seen technologies that will enable future space exploration.
Before I started digging in that other bag. Here you go. Yeah, no problem.
If you need to fix something in space that wasn't designed to be fixed, it's going to take all the experience you can get. With that in mind, when the International Space Station's Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or AMS, needed repairs, NASA's Johnson Space Center and Goddard Space Flight Center used their joint expertise to make it happen. At Goddard, that expertise resides in NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Division, or NEXUS, which evolved from the office that was responsible for the Hubble Space Telescope servicing missions. Key to these missions was the development of specialized tools. While you've probably heard of Hubble, you may not be as familiar with AMS, so let's start there. Designed for a 3-year mission of sifting through cosmic ray particles, AMS has been looking for signs of dark matter from its position on station since 2011. Hundreds of researchers have used the data collected to investigate the source of the mysterious substance to help us better understand the origins of the universe. To continue this important data collection, AMS needed an upgrade due to general wear and tear from the harsh environment of space, specifically a new cooling system. A repair could extend its life beyond what was originally planned. Sounds easy enough, right? In fact, due to the instrument's complexity and the fact that it was not designed to be repaired, even gaining access to the system to replace it was difficult. AMS's design did not incorporate the kinds of interfaces that make spacewalks easier, or have the ability to be serviced with traditional multi-purpose tools. And so, over the course of 4 years, NASA got to work designing and developing some of the most complex spacewalks since the Hubble servicing missions in the 90s and early 2000s to fix AMS.
The AMS tools themselves were unique. They were built specifically for this task, a task that was never intended to be performed on a spacewalk. And so that required a lot of thinking about how we were going to get inside so that we could access the tubes that we needed to cut into and then install the new thermal control system, but also how to put handling aids on it so that we had a place to attach our tethers, to attach our foot restraints, to have handholds, have a place to attach equipment that we needed out there.
NASA developed 20 specialized tools to make the job possible, and on November 15, 2019, astronauts Andrew Morgan and Luca Parmitano got to work. On this first spacewalk, astronauts needed to get access. By design, 5 of the tools could be seen floating off into space, attached to the debris shield that was removed to give the astronauts access to the heart of AMS.
The debris shield handling aid was one of the first tools that Luca installed on the EVA, and this gave us a handhold to install on the debris shield to work from, but also a handle for me to hold on to ultimately when we jettisoned it overboard to the aft side of the ISS, which was a lot of fun to do.
The astronauts continued with 3 more spacewalks over the next 2 months, using all of the specially designed tools. One such tool was the Tube Cutting Guide, which was a direct result of multiple practice sessions at Johnson Space Center facilities like the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. While practicing, astronauts communicated the need for a way to identify and verify the correct tubes to cut, since they all look the same to the astronauts' eyes within the spacesuit.
After we had removed the debris shield and the VSB cover, now we have the tubes exposed, and we actually had to cut into those tubes in order to pull out the correct ones to connect with the new thermal control system, the new pump. In order to do that, we had to be very sure of the tubes that we were cutting. These ingenious tube cutting guides installed over the top of the tubes and made sure that we knew and we were communicating correctly with the ground team to make sure that we were cutting the correct tube at the right time.
In January 2020, Luca Parmitano and Drew Morgan completed the 4th and final spacewalk to repair AMS. Because of their work and the ingenuity of tool designers and engineers, the instrument is now back in commission and able to continue to collect data about the origins of our universe for years to come.
People from Goddard and JC spent a lot of time developing these tools with their knowledge and the support of astronauts like Chris Cassidy. And we are very thankful that we were privileged to use those tools and to put them to a successful use. Thank you very much.
In the dark voids of the solar system, drifting in between the familiar planets and their families of moons, are the asteroids. There may be 1 million, perhaps 2 million of these cold, dark rocks, but these small worlds are anything but dull. In fact, some of them are time capsules from the very beginning of the solar system, unaltered for billions of years. And the clues to how everything around us began, from the formation of the planets to the beginning of life itself, may be locked up in these asteroids. And tonight, a spacecraft from Earth is going to touch one, bring back a sample, and prepare for the long journey back to Earth so we can analyze it.
OREX has descended below the 5-meter mark. The hazard map is go for tag. Contact expected in 50 seconds.
We're going in. We're going in.
OSIRIS-REx is a one-of-a-kind spacecraft with an extraordinary team of engineers and scientists charting unexplored places. It was launched on September 8, 2016. The vehicle has traveled over 2.2 billion miles on a complex route to reach better. You are here with us on a historic evening. It'll be NASA's first sample return from an asteroid, the attempt to actually sample the asteroid Bennu.
This is a reality. We're actually going to be trying to sample on an asteroid.
This represents the hopes and dreams, hard work, blood, sweat, and tears of thousands and thousands of people who have worked on this program for over a decade to make this a reality. The mission is dedicated to my friend and my mentor, Dr. Michael Drake. Mike passed away just 4 months after we were selected by NASA to lead this mission. And, he left some parting words. And he said, first of all, you can do this. You've got the team. We're one team. These are big questions. Everybody's rooting for you. Everybody's behind you. And we can take that and lead them forward.
It's just amazing. We've been rehearsing this event, all the different mission calls and milestones, but then to actually be here tonight and realize that this is going on 200 million miles away.
That's right, yeah. I'm pretty excited.
The pandemic has changed the way we lived our lives. Masks and social distancing have become a way of life.
As the whole world was coming to grips with the pandemic in the March timeframe, this team was in the midst of preparing for the checkpoint rehearsal that would take the spacecraft only 65 meters above the surface. So we had to rethink the entire way in which we were going to do that rehearsal with only a skeleton crew here in the building and with many of our team members remote.
I think the hardest phase of the mission was in spring of 2020 when the COVID pandemic hit. It was a scary time.
And we were exhausted. And I would say probably by April, about a month after the lockdown, I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do it. And it wasn't because of the technical challenges, but it was the stress and the human factors that I was really starting to worry about.
Now, the main event is happening in about an hour. This is called TAG. Can you explain to us a bit why it's called TAG?
Yeah, today we're tagging an asteroid, and TAG is an acronym that describes our sample collection strategy. We're going to send the spacecraft down for a short duration contact with the asteroid surface, anywhere between 5 and maybe as long as 15 seconds. So we call it a touch and go, or tag an asteroid.
And that sample site we're going for today, Nightingale, it's just a few meters in width. Just take a step back for a second and put yourself in the shoes of some of those engineers on this mission. And imagine trying to park a spacecraft on an asteroid 200 million miles away in a space no larger than a few parking spots. As if parallel parking on an asteroid isn't hard enough, imagine also trying to dodge hazards like rocky boulders as you're making your descent down to collect a sample. And on top of that, the team has actually programmed the spacecraft to steer itself down to the surface.
We mapped the surface of Bennu to unprecedented resolution of 2 centimeters per pixel, which is better than what we've done on our own Earth and Moon. So it was a huge Herculean effort to get to this point where we're comfortable handing the maps and the keys over to the spacecraft to get us down into this small site today.
So right behind me is the MSA, the Mission Support Area for OSIRIS-REx. And today it is filled with very excited people, the scientists, engineers, and technical specialists who've worked on this mission, in some cases for more than a decade. So back there is Gary Napier from Lockheed Martin. He's right in the middle of it all. So Gary, what's the feeling in the room?
Michelle, like you said, I am just right behind you, about 20 feet. We're here in the larger Lockheed Martin Mission Support Area, where we're operating 6 of NASA's spacecraft around the solar system, 4 of them at Mars, 1 of them at Jupiter, and this one right here, OSIRIS-REx.
So it's important to understand that the spacecraft is actually literally on the other side of the solar system, over 200 million miles away from the Earth. So any signal that we were to transmit here would take over 18.5 minutes to reach the spacecraft. So when we get these signals back, we're actually seeing things that happened in the past at the asteroid. Earlier we departed our orbit around the asteroid, so we're flying over the sunlit side of the asteroid, taking images for the onboard guidance system called natural feature tracking. A couple other key events that have taken place already is the spacecraft has deployed its robotic TAG-SAM sampling arm, so the arm is ready, in position to collect that sample. And we've turned on and started collecting science data from one of our science instruments, the Otis thermal emission spectrometer. The spacecraft has already moved into its second natural feature tracking attitude and is getting onboard positional updates as we speak. And I can tell you everything is going exactly according to plan right now. It looks really good.
Now, remember that this is a historic event. Today's endeavor will be the first time the space agency has ever touched the surface of an asteroid, collecting a sample of this pristine ancient material, a scientific treasure far more precious than gold. Let's talk a bit about why working in this low-gravity environment makes it tough to get a sample, because you might think sort of at first you could just take like a robotic claw or a robotic arm and scoop something up, but that's not going to work in these conditions.
That's exactly right. The microgravity of Bennu provides a challenge of sampling that we don't normally face on Earth. You can imagine trying to use a shovel or a scoop on Earth, and the ground pushes against you, but the gravity keeps you on the ground. On Bennu, the surface gravity is thousands of times lower than on Earth, so if you pushed a shovel or a scoop into the ground, you'd push yourself right off the surface. So we had to come up with a technique that worked in the microgravity environment and that could work in this tag architecture, this touch-and-go architecture of just a few seconds long.
So I understand the next big milestone we're looking for here is something called match point.
That's right.
So what happens at match point?
Match point is the final maneuver that the spacecraft performs by firing its thrusters. That's where we become centered over the Nightingale sample site and begin that final descent down to the asteroid surface, and the spacecraft is solely focused on its safety calculation and the decision on whether or not it's going to proceed down to collect that sample.
Attitude control system has transitioned to touch and go mode.
Right, spacecraft's getting ready to make contact with the asteroid surface here.
OREX MSA on OREX off. OREX is descending below 25 meters.
Okay, we're getting really close. And I want to remind you, it's the 5-meter crossing. That's the really critical one. We're only a couple minutes away from that. So the spacecraft has one key decision left to make. It's calculating right now the probability that it's going to come down either on a hazardous area, as we defined on that hazard map, or in a safe area. So we may, at 5 meters, the spacecraft may decide that it's hazardous and it's going to back away, allowing us to live to tag another day. So to me, all my senses are on that call out right now. And I really want to hear that we are go for tag.
Position uncertainty is 0.5 meters. Predicted tag lateral offset is 1.7 meters. Hazard probability is 0%. Tag lateral velocity is 0.2 millimeters per second.
Oh my God.
Tag vertical velocity is 10.2 centimeters per second.
That sounded really good.
Yes.
So it sounded like the hazard map calculation looks really good. We're coming down in a green area.
MSA on OREX off. OREX has descended below the 5-meter mark. The hazard map is go for tag. Contact expected in 50 seconds.
We're going in. We're going in.
Touchdown to tag. Sampling is in progress.
Oh my gosh, we're there, folks. That was amazing. I mean, I don't know if you saw the team here, but they just kind of blew up. It went from being steely-eyed to like celebrating the Super Bowl. Congratulations. How you guys feeling?
Transcendental. I mean, I can't believe we actually pulled this off.
OREX MSA on OREX op. Sample collection is complete and the back-away burn has executed.
All right, we're on our way back. The pyro bottle's fired, so tag SAM operated. The back-away thruster's fired, so we're safely moving away from the asteroid surface. The spacecraft did everything it was supposed to do. We did it. We tagged the surface of the asteroid, and it's up to Bennu now to see how the event went. It's almost hard to process everything that's happening right now. It's overwhelming pride in this team and everything we've done to get here. I couldn't really have anything better to say about this group of people.
We are here live after some excellent news. I'm here with an exultant Dante Loretta from the University of Arizona. So one more time for our audience out there, explain when we know we'll have a sample.
A little overwhelmed right now, Michelle, I have to say. It's been pretty intense several minutes here. I can tell you that everything went just exactly perfect, which is kind of the hallmark of this team. We have consistently beaten expectations over and over again. We have overcome the amazing challenges that this asteroid has thrown at us, and the spacecraft appears to have operated flawlessly. We don't know how long we were in contact with yet. That's some reconstructed information that we're going to have to put together over the next few hours as the data come in. We backed away successfully from the asteroid surface. The team is exuberant back there. Emotions are high. Everybody is really proud. We have some work to do to determine how much sample that we have collected. The next thing that I'm going to be looking for is once the spacecraft cools off, it probably got pretty warm as it approached the asteroid surface, so it needs to get rid of some of that excess heat. It's got to get those solar rays back onto the sun and get power positive. Once it's stabilized, it's going to point that high gain antenna at the Earth, and we're going to start bringing that data back. And those SAM-CAM images are going to tell us an enormous amount of information about how the events of today went.
It's going to be a long, hopefully happy night for all of you as more data comes in. Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for a great evening, and kudos to this team. It's an amazing experience.
Oh, wow.
And history was made tonight.
Hello everyone, I'm Nancy Neal Jones from the Office of Communications at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Yesterday, NASA's first asteroid sample return mission, OSIRIS-REx, successfully made contact with the surface of asteroid Bennu to collect a pristine sample for delivery to Earth in 2023. To share some remarks with us and to tell us more about what happened yesterday and what's coming up for the mission, we have with us today Dante Loretta, OSIRIS-REx Principal Investigator, University of Arizona.
So yesterday was all about monitoring this real-time telemetry from the spacecraft as we watched the events unfold 200 million miles away. And the question that came up over and over again in that live broadcast was, when are we going to get the images back? When are we going to know how the sampling event went? I can tell you, a lot of us were up really late last night. We were watching the images come down one by one. By about 2 a.m. here, local time in Denver, we got what I call the money shot, where we saw TAG SAM contacting the surface and then the effect of injecting that high purity gas down into the asteroid regolith. I must have watched it about 100 times last night before I finally got a little bit of shut-eye. And then I dreamed of a wonder world of Bennu regolith particles floating all around me.
Well, like everything on Bennu, a nightingale was unexpected in the way it behaved to the contact from the spacecraft. It's fun to go back and look at some of our early animations where you can see the TAG SAM head pushing firmly onto the surface, kind of like hitting a pad of concrete. There's a little bit of grain and dust that gets kicked up. And you know, we didn't make that up. We tested TAG SAM dozens of times, including in microgravity on NASA's C9B microgravity testing aircraft. And that's what it looked like. TAG SAM pushed down onto the regolith bed, a few little particles floated away, kind of like coins flipping in slow motion. You could hear the rumble as the gravel got ingested into the TAG SAM head, and then when you pulled away, there was a tiny little divot underneath what TAG SAM had excavated. And we really thought Bennu was going to behave just like the test chambers did. But no, it was completely different. There was almost no resistance whatsoever from the asteroid's surface. The TAG SAM plunged in. It was like dropping into a pool of water. And we were deep into the asteroid subsurface even before that gas fired, and we just kept going. If we hadn't fired the back-away thrusters, we think the spacecraft would have just disappeared like into a pool of quicksand. So as a result of that really soft, compliant surface, The gas from TAGSAM and the thruster plumes from the back-away burn excavated an enormous crater, 8 meters or about 25 feet in diameter, way bigger than anything we expected. Our glorious moment, we safely contacted the asteroid surface, bury the TAGSAM head and fire the gas, and you will load that thing up. Turns out we did too good of a job. So, we backed away. 2 days later, on October 22nd of 2020, we put TAGSAM through a photo shoot. All kinds of different camera angles and lighting conditions, just trying to get some hint, was there any sample that was collected in this amazing event? It looked like the TAGSAM head was literally spewing material into outer space, and panic shot through me at that moment. And I was like, oh man, we're bleeding. We're losing sample at an enormous rate. About 10 grams were visible in that one shot. That was, 1/6 of our total mission requirement in a few seconds that we were seeing escaping from the TAGSAM head. The good news was, the reason we were leaking material was because we had collected so many large stones that we were jamming open the safety valve meant to keep everything inside the collection chamber. So we got permission from the agency to go through rapid stow, quickly got the TAGSAM head into the sample return capsule. Through some very clever mathematics, it looks like we collected about 250 grams or about 8 ounces of material. 4 times the mission requirement is what we expect is in that sample return capsule today. And fortunately, we were able to go back to Bennu in April of 2021 to get some great imagery and spectral data of the surface to really quantify the nature of that disturbance. When we designed the mission, we did not plan to go back and image the tag site after sample collection. We thought this is such a risky maneuver, get the goods and get out of Dodge kind of approach. But after that amazing and dynamic response of the asteroid surface, I couldn't leave it alone, right? I was like, this just keeps bothering me. We have to understand what we did, and we have to document it for science and for future asteroid explorers to understand why this behaves so differently. When we estimate the strength of the particles that we see on the surface, there's no way they would survive passage through Earth's atmosphere. They would simply disintegrate, forming a giant fireball. So I have high confidence that we're bringing back the kinds of material that literally, physically cannot make it to the surface of the Earth as a meteorite.
All stations, the ADM burn is completed. We have a nominal ADM burn, and we're bringing the samples home.
Really surreal when you're talking about an asteroid sample return mission, 13 years ago, that we'd actually be at this point now. I had every confidence in the team that we get there, but your mind just isn't going there, right? You're just trying to get to launch, then you're just trying to get to the asteroid, then you're just trying to get through proximity operations and collect the sample. So you're taking a day at a time getting through operations. But yeah, now that we're here, ready to release the capsule, ready to finally collect it, culmination of all this work, decades of work, from thousands and thousands of people on the team. It's just an incredible sense of accomplishment, and really excited to see this thing get on the ground.
All we have left to do to deliver on our promise to the agency is get that sample safely back to the Earth, get it into our laboratories and answer the fundamental questions about the formation of our solar system and why Earth is a habitable world.
On the outskirts of Paris, there is an unusual home that has been turned into a museum of sorts. It is a place filled with memories, letters, and electronic paintings, all of them awaiting discovery by a larger world. They are the expressions of a man who dreamt of exploring the heavens. His was a complicated life, filled with ironies and contradictions. An American by birth, he became a citizen of the world. Though trained as an engineer, he was drawn to the creative arts. Highly articulate, he found it difficult to express his feelings, even with those closest to him. He was a pacifist who built weapons, and a socialist who became a millionaire. He set aside personal convictions to help win a world war, only to later see his country turn against him and declare him an international fugitive. Through it all, he kept meticulous records, hoping to ensure his pioneering role in American rocketry. But today, he has been largely forgotten. Few know of his contributions, or even his name. But from his passion for reaching beyond the boundaries of the Earth would emerge the world's premier center for exploring the solar system. This is the story of one man's reach for the stars, and how his ideas and idealism put him on a collision course with the world. It is the story of the American rocketeer.
Fine school. You can see that it has quality.
Caltech and Pasadena were a world away from Molina's roots. He was a first-generation Texan, born of Czech immigrant parents, both of whom were musicians. Frank Molina was expected to follow his father's musical footsteps. But instead of music, the young boy was drawn to science, mathematics, and art, much to his father's dismay.
He made many cynical remarks about it that I bore very painfully. He also, I recall, belittled my intelligence many times in other matters. He was never really brutal about it, explicitly, but I knew that he carried many disappointments about his boy, as he dreamt he should be.
Molina's forceful father expressed not only disappointments, but the desire that his son should pursue a military career, an expectation at odds with Molina's own ambitions. Early on, he showed signs of a strong, independent streak. In his senior high school yearbook, he declared to the world that he would follow the dictates of his own conscience. After high school, the cash-strapped Molina enrolled at Texas A&M. He majored in mechanical engineering and played trumpet in the Aggie band to help pay for his tuition. Though he did well in his studies, he did not fit in with the military culture of the school. Refusing to curse like the other boys, he was subjected to beatings. Turning inward, Molina became a voracious writer and reader. He kept a detailed journal, noting every book that he had ever read. Believing himself destined for a place in history, he encouraged others to safeguard his letters. Having before only dabbled with drawing, he became serious about art and drew self-portraits. On his dorm wall, he put up depictions of famous figures. Some were from the past. There were World War I generals and the famed aviator Charles Lindbergh, whose solitary flight across the Atlantic had only recently electrified the world. Aviation was pushing the outermost boundaries of technology. and it was the place Molina intended to make his own mark. And to study aviation, there was no better place in the world to be than Caltech. Here was a state-of-the-art wind tunnel, and a professor world-renowned for his work in aerodynamics, who would take Molina under his wing.
Dear Mr. Molina, I'm very happy to inform you that you have been awarded a wind tunnel assistantship at the Institute for the next year, covering your tuition of $300. Such work would be at the rate of 80 cents an hour. Very sincerely yours, Theodore von Karman.
Theodore von Karman was considered an undisputed genius, a fact not lost to him when he ranked the greatest scientists of all time. Sir Isaac Newton was at the top for having had 6 original ideas. Next came Einstein, whom von Karman credited with having had 4 great ideas.
In my case, I have had 3 great ideas. Maybe more. Yes, perhaps 3.5 great ideas.
Von Karman was as sociable as he was intelligent. He loved to smoke cigars, drink bourbon out of tall glasses, and flirt with beautiful women.
His home in Pasadena was the site of apparently remarkable dinner parties where he drew intellectuals and other cultured figures from the Los Angeles area. It seems to have been a rather remarkable kind of salon that went on for a number of years under his aegis and that of his sister and his mother.
Besides the famous, von Karman often invited his brightest students to his home for dinner and conversation.
He was like a mother hen with his chicks around him. These were all young men whom he loved and felt very close to. He was a mentor to all of them. He was simply wonderful.
Over time, von Karman and Molina became especially close. The Hungarian professor helped introduce his graduate student to a larger world and a dizzying swirl of subjects, all of which Molina shared in his weekly letter to his parents.
My brain is going round and round with airplanes, socialism, capitalism, logic, Napoleon, opera, and thermodynamics. Our slide rules are being worn out. I am certainly forced to learn a lot about airplanes.
As Molina's letter home hinted, he was becoming intensely interested in politics and how to solve the Great Depression. It was the era of Roosevelt's New Deal, and socialism, if not communism, seemed to offer solutions for the stricken American economy.
In the 1930s, he is not unlike a lot of intellectuals, attracted to Marxism and learning a little bit about a sense of social and economic justice and how they might be able to achieve those. And it's important to understand that in that era, Marxism did not necessarily have the broad negative connotations that it would gain during the Cold War.
Dear folks, if the Depression continues and war doesn't break out, perhaps we will have some form of socialism even before some people think. There is plenty of reason for the rich class to be afraid. Don't worry about me getting into politics. That is unavoidable.
There were so many terrible things happening in this country with the Depression. So this was not a rare thing. A great deal of it was being talked about, and particularly among people like that you had at Caltech, whose minds were very active and very bright. Of course they would be looking into this, there's no question about it.
Many political discussions that Molina attended took place at the home of Caltech research assistant Sidney Weinbaum. The Russian-born Weinbaum was a formidable intellectual. He was a theoretical physicist, a talented pianist, and a master of chess. He was also the head of the Pasadena branch of the Communist Party. In the years to come, Molina's friendship with Weinbaum would have far-reaching consequences.
I'm happy, my cares have flown away, a new day with nothing in the way, and darling, let's dance together till morning.
Though politically brash, Frank Molina was no firebrand revolutionary. His letters home quickly jumped from politics to opera to the Aggie football team to a budding social life.
Dear folks, last night I went to a dance at the Athenaeum. I had a good dancing partner, so I enjoyed the evening very much. Hope you get to see the Athenaeum someday, as it is really a beautiful place. Everything is kept as nearly as perfect as you can imagine.
There was yet another topic swirling in Molina's mind. Might rocketry be worth pursuing as a career?
And darling, let's dance together till morning.
So far as respectable scientists were concerned, rocketry was really Buck Rogers stuff.
No one wanting to advance their career in academia was thinking seriously of becoming a rocket scientist. In fact, the words rocket and scientist had yet to have been joined together as a respectable concept.
It was very much an amateur sort of thing and very much a fringe kind of thing. There was a widely used astronomy textbook published in the early 1930s which said that rocket flight was impossible. It was something that was really not even on the fringes, even beyond the fringes of respectable science.
Molina's interest in rockets might have been a passing whimsy had not two young men approached him with an intriguing proposal. Might the three of them, these two strangers asked, team up and build rockets? Their names were Ed Foreman and John Whitesides Parsons. They had been friends since meeting on a schoolyard. Neither possessed a college degree, but what they lacked in their education, they more than made up for in enthusiasm.
Apparently it was just electricity. They shared this dream of building high-altitude rockets, and my dad must have been already thinking about it seriously, and so it was just electric.
Foreman was a mechanic who knew how to bend metal into rocket casings. Parsons was a chemist who could fill those casings with rocket fuel. What they needed was the scientific discipline Molina could provide, and the sponsorship of a Caltech professor. Von Karman, with an affinity for the unorthodox, gave the project his blessing. But there were conditions. They could make use of his laboratory, but only in off hours. And they would have to raise their own funds.
I was immediately captivated by the earnestness and the enthusiasm of these young men. Most young people are quite serious about their dreams, so this in itself was not what interested me. It was the unusually strong background and drive of these young rocketeers. Parsons and Foreman told me that their backyards in Pasadena were pockmarked from the effects of rocket explosions.
Foreman and Molina would never be close. But Molina and Parsons found their interests meshed beyond rockets. There were common interests in music and literature. Years later, Molina summed up Parsons as rather exotic of the cultist type, which of course was not unusual in California. It was a clever but obscuring description of Parsons, who was in fact a practitioner of black magic and the occult.
Parsons loved to recite pagan poetry to the sky while stamping his feet. He stood 6'1"